Welcome to the Polyverse. Tonight we have another amazing tale to open your eyes and expand your world. Before we begin, please subscribe and ring the bell to be notified for more great stories. The Polyverse presents an audio tale by D.L. Morris. Dynamar. Immaterial. Anna was running late. Again. She speeds down the streets and boulevards of Burke Hill, Kansas, willing her rust bucket of a bike not to disintegrate. Burke Hill was a cozy hamlet of a town with not more than a few thousand residents. As a minor suburb, aged like milk, many styles of people and architecture mixed in a nauseating pageantry. Since her father disappeared in an unexplained event in Switzerland, this long, dark-haired teen had been on her own. The few relatives she knew of couldn't be bothered to take her in, even if she had told them. It had been nearly a year, but it felt like a lifetime, and the savings were almost gone, and a teen's part-time job couldn't pay a mortgage. She had no idea how she was going to finish this school year, let alone the fiscal one. The sky was clear, the sun was brilliant, the streets were empty. If she wasn't so royally fucked, she might just have found it beautiful. She wanted so much to slow down and savor the moment, but she only pedaled harder, her malnourished legs protesting the whole time. The schoolhouse loomed ahead, like a nightmare. She heard the bell toll. A yellowed yard emptied quickly. Not much was spent on public education anymore. Those deserving of a good education could afford a private one, the prevailing opinion seemed to be. On the verge of condemnation, the crumbling brick facade lamented the years of abuse. The warped doors of the mall couldn't even shut completely. As her ride crashed into the overused, abused bike rack, she jumped off and darted towards the deteriorated portal. She didn't even bother to lock up her POS. Anyone stupid enough to steal it deserved what they got. The inside was not much better than the outside. Yellowing, tattered walls, squeaking, aged lockers, chipped floor and ceiling tiles, all the hallmarks of malign neglect. This was the reality of institutional education in the modern world. Anna willed her weary legs to go faster down the deteriorated passage. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shit! Mr. Buckland, her first period teacher, had a very strict tardy policy. He would slam the door the instant the late bell struck, especially if he saw a delayed arrival. As fast as she was going, she couldn't stop. Despite consciously willing herself not to, as she came into contact with the aluminum door, she passed right through it. The class was in shock. The ability to pass through solid objects was no common feat, and being different was dangerous. All had heard the stories of kids disappearing, never to be seen again. These tales flashed through her mind as she scanned the room, tracing circles on the ground with her toe. All the while, everyone stared. There was Samantha Brighton, the best of her few friends, who stared in horror, her naturally curly brunette hair framing her shock in the most pleasant of ways. There was also Bill Brothers, a boy she barely knew. He looked as if the best thing in the world was happening before his eyes. And Chris Stevens, the boy she wished would notice her. He shrugged as if nothing was amiss. The entire class was a mix of these emotions. Except Mr. Buckland. His face was pale. Beads of cold sweat bubbled across his brow, but other than that, revealing nothing.
"Well, Miss Krishoff," he finally swallowed the deer-in-headlights terror, "it seems there you have more issues than a pattern of tardiness. To the principal's office, young lady."
Anna searched for any kind of moral support, but found none. Finally, eyes downcast in defeat, she turned and, without even bothering to open the door, stepped outside.
"How long?"
Mr. Atkins, the headmaster asked, not needing to elaborate. Public high school administrators did not make near what they should. His office was a reflection of that dismal fact. He cared and did all he could to ensure the best chances of his charges, but money could only be stretched so far. The walls of the small office were decorated with his diplomas, but thank you letters dominated the space. His second-hand, scratched and dented veneer desk was simple but functional. The only two chairs in the office were a mismatched set. A molded plastic desk chair he was seated in, and the narrow, high-backed wooden chair she was in. Her legs were crossed at the ankles and drawn under the chair. Her jeans were once on the tight side of sexy, and her faded blue blouse was clean. This was the last gift her father had given her. She looked at her elder, eyes almost moist, thinking. "Well, sir," she wrung her hands in her lap nervously, "I've been feeling a little strange for the past year now." After a moment, she continued. "The walking through walls thing?" She fought the urge to hyperventilate. "Well, that's new, and a few months now. I still get a little sick in the morning." He nodded his head and got up to round his desk and knelt in front of her to hold her hands reassuringly. "What about your family, your parents?" "My mom died in combat over the Middle East," she shrugged. "My dad, he disappeared after the CERN incident." "Wasn't that 2 years ago?" 18 months. "That's still much too long for a young lady," he gasped. "I don't really like my relatives." "That's beside the point, dear," he sighed sadly. "You can't go through life alone, especially in these troubling times. And with powers, I'm afraid someone might try to take advantage of you." I've heard the stories," she cried. "Kids with powers disappearing." "Anna," he soothed, "those are just stories." After a moment to make certain her sobs had subsided, he stood and began to pace. "The thing is, though, we do have to make certain everyone is safe. And unfortunately, I don't think we can do that for you in this situation." The horror returned to his eyes. "What are you saying, sir?" No labs or experience, I promise. There have recently been schools formed to help children with strange abilities. I'll make a few calls, see what I can set up for you." Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our amazing tale. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe for more great adventures from the Polyverse.